Do we have amplification going with this? All right, perfect. Wonderful. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? It hasn't started the snow yet, so we're fine. Everybody, it's fine. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to get together for this regular Community Safety Commission meeting, which will now come to order. As a reminder, this is a rescheduled meeting. It was originally going to be in December. The snow shut that down, and so now we're back meeting today. So Deputy Mayor Shan Kemper and I are pleased to welcome you here today, and thank you for making arrangements with your schedule to alter this meeting date. So before we go any further, Jordan, could you please conduct the roll call for us?
Sure. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to read your name. You say here if you're here, and if you're not, please don't. David Grease. Here. Maddie Jones is not here today, I know for a fact. Madison Mobus, I think could not make it. Katura Heron. Jack Will. Excellent. Scott Huber. All right. Angie Verona. Renee Brown. All right. Joni Jenkins. Rose Smith. Kungu Njuguna. Gary Friedman. Zenebia Law, I think, is online. Here. Thank you. Angela Johnson. Here. David Lopez. Here. Jess Brown. Here. Freddie Brown Jr. Here. Garina Weathers. Oh, excuse me, I knew that. Elizabeth Jones Brown is here representing. My apologies. Mike O'Connell. Jeff DeRuan. He's not. Oh, okay, that's fine. Amy Hanna. Here. Randy White. Here. Okay. McKay Chauvin. Excuse me. Need to write down how to say these. Barbara Shanklin. Here. Matt Anderson. Here. Misty Wright. Here. Shan Kemper. And Sheree Briscoe Stewart. Here. Oh, there you are. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. With that roll call, we have a quorum. We wanted to let you know Senator Herron is not here. She is in legislative session, and she will catch up on the happenings of this meeting afterward. Also, Ms. Maddie wanted us to pass on a message. She unfortunately sustained an injury and is not mobile at this time, so she was not able to join us here today, but we will get her up to speed with everything that happens here. Also, this meeting is being live streamed, so anybody can watch it if they so choose. All right, then let's get into it. Let's go to the next slide. All right, starting with the agenda, we just did our welcome and roll call. Next, we are going to do approval of meeting minutes, and then after that, we're going to do a quick review of LMPD data that was requested by one of our commission members. After that, we will go to a report from the independent monitor, who is here with us today, Alifa. And after that, we will go to the creation of our commission subcommittees and appointment of members to those subcommittees. So all of those agenda items that I mentioned, we're hoping to accomplish that in 30 minutes or less. Then we're going into a panel and presentation on the first agenda item that this commission wanted to hear about, which is youth violence prevention. You're going to hear from JCPS Police, and our Office of Violence Prevention is also here. Then there will be a break. And after that, we'll come back. We'll get our second agenda item going on mental health resources. You'll hear from the mayor's office on that. And finally, we'll go to other business and set the agenda items for our next full commission meeting. And at the end, after we adjourn, we've reserved some time for the subcommittees to meet and speak amongst yourselves to decide meeting schedules, and we can help you if you need assistance finding locations for your meetings or setting dates and times. All right. So let's now go to approval of minutes. At your seat in front of you today, you'll see today's agenda, and followed by the minutes from the October commission meeting. You'll also have the PowerPoint presentation for today and some other materials. These materials have been 3-hole punched so you can stick them in your binders more easily. These minutes were also emailed to you on Tuesday. First, I want to ask, does anyone need some time to read over the meeting minutes from our prior meeting? All right, I don't see any hands in the air. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from this commission's October 14, 2025 meeting? Thank you. Is there a second? All right, any discussion on the motion? I don't see any hands. Hearing no further discussion, we will proceed to a vote on approving these minutes. All in favor, please say aye. All right, all opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The October 14, 2025 Community Safety Commission meeting minutes have been approved. All right, now let's go on to our first substantive agenda item, and that's LMPD data review. LMPD can't join us today because all of their command staff are in-service training this week. So I will simply kind of go over the bare bones of what the data says. If you have additional questions about how the data was obtained or kind of a deeper dive into that data, they are more than willing to answer those questions at our next commission meeting. And I'm happy to collect those questions for you if you'd like. All right, our commission member, David Lopez, previously requested some information from LMPD describing trends in crime data for Hispanic Louisvillians. You're going to see 4 charts, if we can go to the first one. All right, this first chart, and you also have a printout of this at your desk. On the y-axis, we have percentages, right? And on the x-axis, we have years. So it goes from 2019 all the way through 2025. And then there are 3 things measured here. The blue line shows the percentage of our population who identify as Hispanic. So you can see in 2019, it was 6.9%. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up again. 2025, we're at 10.8%. All right? The next line you see is green, and this is the percentage of suspects who are Hispanic. Of course, not all crimes have suspects, so bear that in mind when you're looking at this data. But we can see that in 2019, it started at 4.3%, decreased, then we saw an increase and a slight decrease last year. And the final measure is the percentage of Hispanic victims of all crimes. Again, not all crimes are reported, so keep that in mind as you look at this data. There may be some that LMPD does not know about. But from the data we have, it started in 2019 at 2.7% and has pretty much been steadily increasing ever since. So that is for all crime. We're now going to break this down into categories of crime, and it's all formatted the exact same way. Could we go to the next slide, please? This slide shows crimes against persons. So this is crimes where the victim is an individual, things like murder, rape, assault, things of that nature. The blue line remains constant because that's just the percentage of our Hispanic population. If you look at the green line, though, this is the percentage of suspects, Hispanic suspects. It dips down significantly to 0 in 2021 and then increases and then kind of levels out here. The percentage of Hispanic victims largely tracks the all crime data to go from 2.7% upward through 2025. And next slide, please. Next, we have crimes against society. This is things like drug violations, gambling. And here we see the same blue line for our percentage. The percentage of victims has been increasing, that's that orange line, and the percentage of suspects was 0 through 2021 and has increased slightly. Keep in mind these percentages are all low to begin with, as we're already under 12%. Sir? So the question was, the percentages, are they percentages compared to the Hispanic population at large, or is this for all crimes? This is the percentage of all crimes against society where there was a Hispanic victim or a Hispanic suspect. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. All right, let's go to the final slide, and this is crimes against property. Things like theft, fraud, burglary, and now you know the drill. We see an increase in victims, that's the orange line, and we see an increase also in suspects with a slight decrease in 2025. All right, bearing in mind that I don't personally have more information or answers for you, are there any questions that commission members have about this data at this time that I can record to get answered for you? Yes?
I don't know if you know the answer. I guess I just have a question in terms of this. Is that the individuals who are determined to be Hispanic, is that by self-identification or an officer's perception of who I think that person is?
That, I think, is a much more complicated answer than I'm prepared to give. Okay. And so I will put that on LMPD's task list to answer next time. Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. So in terms of understanding a part of what this data is showing, if I'm reading this correctly, it's that the Latin Hispanic population underrepresents with both regard to percentage of suspects and percentage of victims relative to their percentage of the overall population. Is that a correct understanding of this data?
That is correct, with that one exception where we saw a spike in the green line in one of the prior charts. But certainly as of now, and systemically, it has been underrepresented.
And that even as the Latin Hispanic population has increased significantly, the Latin Hispanic population has continued to underrepresent, correct?
That is correct.
Except for that one exception, which was under crimes against persons. And then the last question is, I think we've been hearing a lot in the news about recent decreases. Could it be that as we look into the 2026 data and we see those decreases overall, that we may see similar decreases for all subgroups, I'm assuming? Because I'm assuming some of the decreases aren't showing up here yet in crimes.
So this is for all of 2025 data. So this is closing out the end of the year in 2025.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Okay, let's now go to the report from the Independent Monitor, and I want to turn it over to Shan Kemper.
Thank you. Before we turn to our next agenda item, I just want to briefly reintroduce ALEFA, or Effective Law Enforcement for All. After a competitive process and significant community input, Mayor Greenberg selected ALEFA to serve as the independent monitor for the community commitment. Their role is to act as a neutral evaluator of LMPD's progress, provide technical assistance where appropriate, and report regularly to this commission and the public on how implementation is going. ALEFA is a nonprofit that works nationally with cities, police departments, and communities to support safe, effective, respectful, and lawful policing and to help build trust between law enforcement and the public. In December, ALEFA's Louisville team hosted their first community meeting at Passport. That meeting focused on introducing their work, listening to community members, and hearing directly from residents about their experiences and priorities. Today, ALEFA is here to provide an update to the Community Safety Commission on how they are structuring their work in Louisville, what they heard at the December 10th community meeting, and what commissioners and the public can expect in the coming months. With that, I will turn it over to ALEFA team to walk us through their update and take your questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. I don't want to have my back to you. I would be remiss if I did not introduce my colleague, who is a part of the ALEFA team that you all have not met in person. He has been listed, and as we do this work, you'll continue to see other members from the ALEFA team. So if you would, please, Jason, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. Come on, Louisville, y'all can do better than that. Good afternoon. There we go. My name is Jason Armstrong. I'm a retired police chief. Most notably, I was the police chief in Ferguson, Missouri. I came into Ferguson years after the Mike Brown incident to lead all of the reform work in that community under Ferguson's consent decree. So I was there for a few years doing that work when Breonna Taylor was killed, when George Floyd was killed. That set off round 2 of the riots in Ferguson, and I had to lead the department through everything that we experienced, similar to what you all experienced here in Louisville during that time as well. Upon retirement, one of the things that I absolutely wanted to do in this space was to work with communities and work with agencies. Doing this process in particular, being a police chief that was under a consent decree, you all have the community commitment here. It was one of the most challenging things that I experienced in my professional career, and having that knowledge and that experience of what that process was like, I wanted to lend my experiences to other agencies and other communities that have to navigate that same space. So I thank you all for welcoming us here, and I absolutely look forward to the work that we're going to do together to see the progress and the positive change here in Louisville. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jason. And I want to acknowledge and thank so much our partner in this work, aside from all of you, Deputy Mayor Kemper, I know it was announced before our arrival in December that former Commissioner Harrison had taken on another role. He is the Deputy Mayor of Public Safety for the city of New Orleans. And with that, I was asked to take on this role. So it is truly my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to be your lead monitor. We were here on the ground in December. We had the opportunity to meet with community members and all those that were willing to come out and meet with us in person. There's something about coming to Louisville. The commission meeting was canceled because there's snow. We are packed up. My luggage is in the office in the back because I am taking a flight out because there is snow coming. I don't know what the spring is like in Louisville, but I am so looking forward to it so that we're not required to rush out of here or have to deal with snow. Just a little something to break the ice. Everybody looks so serious. This is a serious commission and body and meeting, but I just want us to kind of have some way to just take a deep breath as we're walking through this information. So we're here, though I waved to everybody in December and said, I will see you in February. We were noticed and told that LMPD was starting their annual training. And working in partnership with them, when they shared that they were doing their training, they offered the invitation for us to come and observe. That's a portion of our technical assistance, as was referenced when Deputy Mayor Kemper gave the readout. There was no way that we could not show up and provide observation and technical assistance during this period. Training is such a pivotal part of how, as an organization, as a body, a police department, as a city, you make the necessary adjustments, changes, and reforms that are needed to go through this process. So that is why we have been here all week, and we have been with them in training, and we are here today. We stepped away from the training today because it was important, the fact that we're physically in town, to not virtually log in and give you these updates. In terms of report outs, we will be better prepared for you to have something more tangible come the February meeting, but I can tell you where we are. We are in that part of the process that we're negotiating the implementation plan. We received the implementation plan in our hands. We've given comments and feedback, so that's a negotiation process. We have received some policy work, and we are in the policy work process, as in we've given the feedback. We've had an opportunity to workshop that feedback. That is when you get both parties together and you start going through, what does this mean and how does this help you? And you start to navigate language and understanding of both the responses and the content provided. Same so for the training implementation plan. We received that training implementation plan. We have provided feedback, which brought us to this point of observing. As the commitment requires, there's a collaboratory process that prepares for training. That official process for LMPD's 2027 training will happen mid-year this year, roughly. I don't want to speak for the dates and times, but it triggers like mid-year. So we'll be back again to do something more robust. We were here to observe and provide technical assistance and observational reports that we'll provide to them at the conclusion of this visit. So I know I said a whole lot in a little bit of time because I know you weren't expecting me to be here in person, and I wasn't really expecting to have so much of an update, but I'm grateful that we do. So let me say it a little slow if you didn't catch it. We've received the required implementation plan by policy. We have provided, feedback was provided to us. The policy requires that in that process, we have a session, and we're scheduling that session. The protocols were submitted to Louisville Metro government as well as LMPD, the monitoring communication protocols. Feedback was given to us from those protocols, and by commitment, we're required to have a workshopping session. We're going to have our workshopping session to negotiate some of the language. There were some additions being asked for in that process. So when you hear me saying negotiate the language, when you give feedback during this process, it's collaborative. And we take that feedback and then we start to negotiate what should be in the document to be published for your consumption. So that is the process that we're in with the implementation plan for training, the overall implementation plan for the community commitment, as well as the monitoring protocols. Those three things are currently in process. Are we clear? Everybody's with me. Wonderful. We're here this week because once we were noticed for the training, we didn't want to miss it. So we all adjusted our schedules, and it was the three of us. One team member, Marcia Thompson, had to get back. get back out. So it was 3 of us here since Monday, observing their training to be able to provide that feedback. Now I'll pause, and I'll take any questions that you have for us.
They having a meeting in our districts that they allow us to know about it, because we have 3 meetings set up for that same day, one with the police, one with the community meeting, and I just found out that they're going to be in Newburgh on February the 17th, which is already, everything's already had been set up. So now we have to meet, we have to change the police meeting and my community meeting because nobody contacted the Metro Council's office.
So thank you so much for that, Councilwoman Shanklin. Am I saying it correctly? Councilwoman Shanklin, I know that you've been speaking with one of the other deputy monitors, Brian Core. I know that you've been speaking to Mr. Core, and I want to apologize for that. We were just trying to figure out where in the week we could have the meeting. That is a date, if I'm not mistaken, you all are already having a meeting, and we were trying to just make it make sense as opposed to what works for community. So maybe the approach when we're coming back in would be to say, is this available? So there's a challenge of trying to figure out what works best. We are choosing evening meetings because the goal is to be able to meet with members of community that otherwise have daytime commitments and wouldn't be able to come. So much like now where the commission is meeting, working people aren't necessarily able to attend working hour meetings. So the goal was really to try to achieve meeting with the most available groups of people at the most available times. So what we can consider doing going forward is asking the question more broadly, is this a good date? Recognizing that generally when we come to the ground, we're here for a limited window of time. So I do apologize if that creates inconvenience for your office and you, and I know that you all had an opportunity to dialogue. When I say you, I mean you and Mr. Core. I'm aware of that. Brian brought it to my attention before I traveled in, so I'm grateful to address it out loud. The flyer has gone out, but I know that conversation happened to write that. And so I know that there's potentially an opportunity to kind of share meeting time, that post your meeting, that people will be able to come over or vice versa. But we'll work that out in the future to just ask, is this a good meeting date? Recognizing that there's not necessarily perfection in that, but at least you have notice in advance that it doesn't abrase anything that you have planned.
If there are any other questions, can I ask that you either email me directly or you can contact us, but are probably preferably email Alifa just so we can keep on time.
I'm off time. I done got you off track.
We started off.
Okay. My apologies, but I just want to make sure that we're not that's not something happening going forward. So I acknowledge it, I apologize, and we'll work our best to course correct that in asking you your availability. And I'm happy to take anything you have further if you just email us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. So our next item on our agenda is discussion and action and the creation of the Community Safety Commission subcommittees. This item was listed on the public agenda as discussion and action creation of CSC subcommittees. I will read each proposed subcommittee aloud. And the proposed subcommittees are youth violence prevention and after-school programming, mental health and trauma response, LMPD, strategies, use of force, bias-free policing, and domestic violence. These subcommittees are being created with a wide breadth of possible focus areas. For example, subcommittees may focus on topics such as reentry and rehabilitation, positive messaging and elevating youth voices, LMPD accountability and data, improving community trust in LMPD, LMPD stop searches and bias-free policing. These topics are illustrative, not limiting, so essentially they are a floor, not a ceiling, and they show the range of issues that subcommittees may explore as they develop work plans. Because this is a significant structural step in the commission, we will take up each subcommittee separately. So for the first subcommittee, is there a motion to establish the Youth Violence Prevention and After-School Programming Subcommittee? Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to establish the Youth Violence Prevention and After-School Programming Subcommittee? Hearing no further discussion, we will proceed to a vote on establishing the Youth Violence Prevention and After School Program Subcommittee. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Wonderful. The ayes have it, and the Youth Violence Prevention and After School Program Subcommittee is established. Is there a motion to establish the Mental Health and Trauma Response Subcommittee? Thank you. Is there a second? Is there any discussion on the motion to establish the Mental Health and Trauma Response Subcommittee? Thank you. Oh, is there discussion?
I raised at our first meeting the issue of suicide in the community. Would that fall under number 1 or number 2 or both?
So I think it can be both. I don't think it has to be either. I think it can be both. I think that touches on multiple issues within the subcommittee, the various subcommittees. And so, like I said, I just want to reiterate, this it absolutely is a floor, not a ceiling. If that is something that within your subcommittee you wanted to discuss, or you wanted to take action on, or have the committee take up as a whole, that is absolutely something you could do.
Well, the reason I asked that, and to keep it kind of in front of everybody, I was at a meeting recently where the chief spoke, and of all his statistics, suicide in the community is the only one that has not gone down. Of all his data across the board, suicide is still...
Was that the Jefferson League of Cities meeting?
Yes.
It was really, really a very stark data point when he mentioned that. And that's why I think absolutely that can be something that the committee takes up as a whole, or, I mean, the commission takes up as a whole, or something that can be multiple committees.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Is there a motion to establish the, okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Hearing no no's, the Mental Health and Trauma Response Subcommittee is established. Next is the LMPD Strategies, Use of Force, and Bias-Free Policing Subcommittee. Is there a motion to establish the LMPD Strategies, Use of Force, and Bias-Free Policing Subcommittee? Second? Is there any discussion? All in favor of establishing the LMPD Strategies, Use of Force, and Bias-Free Policing Subcommittee, please say aye. Any opposed? Hearing no no's, the LMPD Strategies, Use of Force, and Bias-Free Policing Subcommittee is established. Next and final, the Domestic Violence Subcommittee. Is there a motion to establish the Domestic Violence Subcommittee? Any second? Thank you. Is there any discussion on establishing the Domestic Violence Subcommittee? All in favor of establishing the Domestic Violence Subcommittee, please say aye. All opposed? Hearing no opposition, the Domestic Violence Subcommittee is established. The Commission has now established 4 subcommittees. The next item on our agenda is the appointment of Commission members to each subcommittee. The assignments reflect the preferences that Commission members submitted. Every member has been placed in their first or second choice. I am going to pull up the slate of members for each committee, and I will read the proposed membership for each committee, and we will vote on each slate. So not every individual person, but the slate of individuals. I just want to say before we take votes, one practical note. Commission members are already seated with their group members today. Please use the break time and time after the meeting to connect with your group about scheduling, first meeting dates, and priority topics. I will talk a little bit more about that after we have voted on the slate of members. Metro staff will also follow up to help coordinate. For the Youth Violence Prevention and After School Programming Subcommittee, the proposed members of this committee are Barbara Shanklin, Freddie Brown, Angie Verona, Randy White, Gary Friedman, Matt Anderson, Katora Heron. Is there a motion to appoint this slate of members? A second? Is there any discussion? We will vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the slate is adopted. Members are appointed as read. Next is our Mental Health and Trauma Response Subcommittee. For the slate of individuals are Jessica Brown, Madison Mobus, Jack Will, Amy Hanna, Jorina Weathers, and Scott Huber. Is there a motion to appoint this slate of members? Okay, thank you. Second? Is there any discussion? All in favor of appointing this slate of members, please say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, and the slate is adopted. Members are appointed as read. Third, LMPD Strategies, Use of Force, and Bias-Free Policing Subcommittee. The slate of members are Angela Johnson, David Grice, Renee Brown, Kunga Njuguna. Kunga Njuguna, Maddie Jones, and McKay Chauvin. Is there a motion to appoint this slate of members? Second? I know it's rough, but if we could just get a motion or a second, that would be awesome. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we will vote. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the slate is adopted. Members are appointed as read. Finally, the Domestic Violence Subcommittee. The proposed members of this subcommittee are Joni Jenkins, Zaniba Law, David Lopez, Rose Smith, and Mike O'Connell. Is there a motion to appoint this slate of members? Thank you. Second? Thank you. Is there any discussion needed? Hearing no discussion, we will vote. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, and this slate is adopted. Members are appointed as read. Before we move on, I want to make a few points for the record about how the subcommittees will operate. First, because of the Open Meetings Act, any meeting of a community safety subcommittee is subject to the Kentucky Open Meetings Act. That means subcommittees' meetings must be publicly noticed, must have an agenda, and must keep minutes, just like our full commission. Second, LMG must be involved in any subcommittee meetings for Open Meetings Act purposes. Metro staff will help schedule and facilitate the subcommittee meetings and will assist with notice, agenda preparation, and minutes to ensure full compliance with the law. So subcommittees should not meet informally on their own. That does not mean that you cannot come up with scheduling ideas or discussions such as that during this meeting. All subcommittees should be coordinated in advance with Louisville Metro government. And finally, I just want to thank you. The commission has now created 4 subcommittees, appointed members to each. We got through it and clarified the process for how subcommittees will work.
All right, awesome. Thanks, everybody, for bearing with us. Thank you, Shan Kemper, for getting through all of that. We are now to the meat and potatoes. So if I could please invite Dr. Anderson. We have Chief Kessinger up here. If our representatives from Office of Violence Prevention could please come forward. And I'm going to ask you, sir, to just scoot down one. Yep, thank you very much. And if our Office of Violence Prevention people could please, Ms. Dix, if you could come forward and take a seat right over here. Yeah. All right. Our first presentation and discussion of the day is on youth violence prevention. We are happy to welcome Community Safety Commission member Dr. Matt Anderson, who serves as the Assistant Superintendent of Culture and Climate for Jefferson County Public Schools. Dr. Anderson is an educational leader and expert in school culture, climate, and violence prevention with a deep commitment to eliminating systemic barriers to student success. With more than 17 years of experience in education, Dr. Anderson has dedicated his career to fostering safe, inclusive, and equitable learning environments, particularly for students facing the highest levels of trauma and risk. In his role at JCPS, Dr. Anderson leads district-wide efforts to prevent violence, reduce disproportionality and discipline, and create student-centered systems of support. His role includes oversight of the following functions: violence prevention, safe crisis management, bullying prevention, multi-tiered systems of support, student relations, pupil personnel, social emotional learning, and safety administration. I have so much more on him, but you do too in your booklets because he's a commission member. So I'm going to stop speaking about him for a moment, and if there's additional information, I trust him to bring that up. Also speaking is Todd Kessinger, who serves as Chief of Police for Jefferson County Public Schools. He is a retired major from the Louisville Metro Police Department. He previously led LMPD Major Crimes Division and Special Operations Division. Those are our two presenters, but also with us to round out the discussion are two people from our Louisville Metro Office of Violence Prevention, Marvita Starks, who runs their Pivot to Peace violence intervention programming, and Nanette Dix, who runs their Trauma Resilient Communities programming. And now I will turn it over to our speakers. Fair warning, we will bug you when there are 5 minutes left in the session so that we kind of stay on time, and also when the session is over.
I don't know who wrote that bio of me. That's way too long. Good afternoon. Thanks for having us here today. We're excited to be here to talk to you about all of the things that we do. Chief Kessinger and each of our roles work very closely in a variety of capacities to support our students who are involved in some unfortunate activity in our communities. And so we're going to talk specifically about what some of those things are today. I'm going to touch on one that's kind of a high level, all of the things that we do to support kids. And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of some of our work, and then obviously answer any questions that you have. Sir, you got me? All right, good. One more. Dr. Yearwood, you can go one more, always likes to highlight our mission and vision. That's in your notes for reference if you want to check that out. Given our time, I'm going to jump right into many of the supports that we have for our students. A lot of those deal around staff. A lot of them are programs and training that my office oversees implementing alongside Chief Kessinger. Many of these things are both proactive and reactive to what's going on in our community. Some of the proactive things that we have, we've recently instituted weapons detection. We have those in place at all our middle and high schools. We also just do general safety audits, and those are audits that are conducted by the state and also internally at each of our buildings. And those are just structural safety audits. Are we following our protocols for the ways people enter the building? We're making sure all of our doors are locked, both externally and internally. And are we doing everything that we possibly can to make the physical building safe? In addition to that, we offer all of our staff, every school has what's called a safe crisis management team. And so when we have a situation where a student is escalated, we're experiencing some trauma and reacting to that, we have a team that is trained to work with that student and de-escalate them and get them back in the classroom where they need to be. We obviously have a violence prevention team. I'll talk a little bit about that. We also have school-based threat assessment teams. These are school-based staff that have 10 hours of training around threat management and safety planning. And so anytime we have a social media threat or get a call to our tip line or any of those things, a school-based team meets, comes together, investigates the situation, comes up with a safety plan, and then provides additional resources, supports, and sometimes appropriate discipline to any of the students that were involved. Bullying prevention is a major concern for us, and so we're always working to expand our resources for that. We have a curriculum that we are putting in every one of our schools, and so we are working to implement that. Alongside that, I have a team that responds to any bullying incident that we would have in our school, and really working on victim support services and counseling, what that might look like, but also how can we address the larger issue as that is manifesting itself either at school or at home. I also like to give a good shout out to our tip line that is available on our website. So around any safety concern, bullying concern, or any related incident, we have a tip line on our homepage that is monitored 24/7 that you can always report any of those incidents to. Those go to Chief Kessinger's team and my team, and we work through those. We implement, as you know, every school has mental health practitioners, and we are continuing with that. There's staffing there. We also have safety administrators that are different than our SROs. These are administrators that are present in the building every day, participating in those school safety teams, working through many of the required drills and those sorts of things, and then also just building relationships with kids so we can have a better feel for what's going on. We have a crisis response team, so anytime we have a sibling or a staff member or a student that has passed away, we have an entire team that responds from the district level to that school to make sure everybody has the resources, counseling resources, and access to appropriate mental health supports as each school navigates those challenging situations. That is coupled with our Handle with Care program. Many of you have probably heard that before. So if we have a student who has been involved in some kind of non-related school incident in the community, but we think it's going to impact them in a way that law enforcement was present. Maybe it's a domestic violence issue that occurred in the house. We have a system set up so that we can be notified and the school can know, hey, this student experienced this last night, and in a non-punitive way really work with that student to get them what they need. We also, around programming, I mentioned our bullying prevention. We also do a lot of training with our staff, and we have school-based and district-based trauma-informed care plans. And those are really making sure, one, students have access to adults in the building that know them. And we're paying attention to that and making sure that every student has an adult that cares about them and has a relationship with them. It involves a lot of training around trauma-informed care practices. So are we responding appropriately to our students and sometimes staff who experience traumas before they get to us, when they're with us, or when they're out in the community? We want to be responsive to that. And so we do a lot of work in that area. There's also some behavior-related research information that we share as it relates to student development and mind and growth development. And I think, trying to get through this as quickly as possible, that's covered everything on this slide. I'll talk a little bit more about our violence prevention team. This work has been pivotal for us and something new to us. You know, many of us signed up to be educators to teach math, to teach maybe reading and spelling, to teach math or science, but we find ourselves in a unique situation where we know it is 100% our responsibility to support all our kids. And as you've seen a growth in safety-related incidents in the community, we want to make sure we have a response to that. So we have a violence prevention team that I oversee, and what they do really is work to stay engaged with our students. They do a lot of case management. If we have a gun-involved youth in the community, we want to make sure that, one, we have a safety plan for that student. We want to make sure, two, that they have resources they need. But also, if you've been a victim of gun violence, whether you're a first grader or a 12th grader, we want to make sure we have a team that can really work with that family primarily and make sure they have what they need through the Office of Violence Prevention, but also they have what they need in the school, and making sure that they have every support, anything that they might need around making sure they're getting to school on time with transportation, waking up, all of those things. This team is non-punitive. They do look at school safety plans and try to figure out for some of our gun-involved youth what might be the best way we can ensure safety of others. And so they do things like home visits. They check in with students in that way. There's about 4 of these staff members. They're LCSW type people, and they are in our schools. They're at your bus stops. A couple of them are here today, or some of that leadership team is here today. You will see them around, but we are very proud of that work and what they do. The last thing that they do is they've really been a great segue or collaborative person that we can utilize with the Office of Violence Prevention, our SROs, and LMPD, and they really work with a lot of our community partners to make sure we have the right information, and where kind of our ability to support students stops, they can extend that through additional resources in the community. The other thing that we've really tried to do, if you do any type of research in this area, the emphasis on early intervention is huge. We have a grant funds that support this work. And what we are trying to do is really reach our elementary students and be as proactive as we possibly can in addressing any early issues that may be impacting some of our elementary students. And what that looks like is we host a variety of community events, either at the school level or with community partners. Freddie is one of our host sites for some of these events. They're open to all elementary age students, and what we really do is just bring them in and provide them parent-level training around things like de-escalation, how to spend quality family time, when your son or daughter is manifesting this behavior, what might be some things that would lead to that, but also how some of their childhood experiences that they are seeing and witnesses maybe in the home may be impacting them later in life. And so alongside that training and those supports for families, we offer community resources, whether that be substance abuse or any of those other things. We also partner with Restorative Justice VOA to make sure that we have, when we've identified some of our younger students who have a need, we can connect them with a partner who can holistically address their needs, whatever those might be beyond the classroom. Chief Kessinger.
Go to the next slide. This is kind of an overview of the JCPS Police Department, some of the initiatives and programs that we've started in the last 3 years. If you've paid attention, you've followed along with it. Partly, some of the things that we've started is to stay compliant with state law. Other things are a push from the school board and the superintendent to increase safety in the schools. In the last 3 years, our number one mission and focus is school resource officers. The way that has normally been done in Louisville, over the years, there were times when it was contracted out. LMPD would supply 26 officers, J-Town, St. Matthews, other organizations would supply officers. There was a time when they were pulled out of the schools, and then that was supplemented with a variation of different types of security. Plainclothes, unarmed, non-sworn people took those roles. As it sits today, we have full, sworn, certified school resource officers. It's changed a lot over 3 years since I started here. We have a sworn uniformed officer in every high school and middle school. The way that we do that, we broke the district down into 4 sectors. Each middle school, high school has their own SRO, and then we took the additional 90 elementary schools and we divide those up geographically, and we add that to the responsibilities of the SROs at the school so that each SRO has their primary location that they go to in the morning, and they assist with student intake and with the weapons detection. And then they have those other elementary schools that they have to patrol and visit on a daily basis. So we have every school in the district has SRO coverage. I'd like to explain the way that works is they start out at their primary assignment, and they assist with the weapons detections, and they assist with the middle schools and high schools once the students are in, and then they go and they patrol and they support the other schools around there. Some of the other things that we do is our investigations division. We used to be really heavily reliant on other departments and other agencies to investigate crimes. We investigate any criminal activity that takes place on JCPS property. Now, depending on the complexity or jurisdiction, sometimes there are situations where we reach out and we get a lot of assistance from LMPD, from other departments. So those are kind of joint investigations, or we'll start an investigation and we'll hand that off. But for the most part, we've become where we're really brought all that in-house, our investigations in-house, and we do that ourselves. I'm just going to touch on the diversion program. We're going through the process of starting a pre-arrest diversion program, which is different from juvenile court and JCYC, which is post-arrest diversion program. So that's just an additional tool that our officers will have when they go out into the schools that they can address things and kind of come up with programs and resources to address root causes instead of getting involved in the court system. So we're still building that. We work hand in hand with Dr. Anderson's team, Climate Culture, and we're putting that together as we speak. Dr. McCoy's in the back. He's part of that program. Our canine unit. We started our own canine unit. We brought our own dogs in. We used to contract that out, so we would be at the service or at the needs of whatever contractor that we hired for that service. We have our own dogs. They're what they call floppy-eared dogs. They've never been through bite work. They've never been through patrol work. They're very approachable. Students can pet them. We had them in Brown School earlier this morning. They got a call that the students at Brown were going to take the SAT, so they brought the dogs in and kind of walked through it and got to mingle with the students. Our dogs are single-purpose dogs. They're detection only. So you have a drug detection dog, a gun detection dog, an explosive detection dog. We also have a therapy dog that we went through a process and was awarded. She's a unique-looking dog. Maybe not the most photogenic, but she's got a fantastic personality and everybody loves her. Actually, she's a good-looking dog, but I messed with our handler about it. So the 4 dogs, they're blending in, doing a lot of work for us. District level reunification, that's something that we're working on right now. If we ever had a major incident at a school, we've predetermined 4 locations throughout the city that we would reunify our students at. That's different from what previously had been done, and we're rolling that out to our principals right now. We're getting all of that worked out, but that's something that we're working towards. And then I want to touch on our threat assessment team. 3 years ago, if we had a social media threat or a student threatened to come to school and cause some type of violence, we would contact an outside agency. They would investigate that. They would partner up with Homeland Security or the FBI, and they would work that threat. We brought all of that in-house. So our threat assessment team on the police department side, because I'm going to touch on the next slide, I'll touch on that also. But on the police department side, we have a team of 7 officers that work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if they get called. We get a social media threat. We get a text message threat, whether it's a direct threat or a veiled threat, where a student threatens to bring a weapon to school or to come to school and cause some type of violence. We work that case until it's resolved. The resolution, most of the time, results in criminal charges. We always conference that case with juvenile prosecutor and CDW, and so we're kind of at their direction of how they want to handle that case or proceed. But year to date, we've had 28 incidents to where a student has threatened to bring a gun to school or threatened to come to school and cause violence. We have resolved 26 of the 28. The 2 that are open and unsolved, those are national swatting cases. So they started not just our jurisdiction, but across the country. So we've been able to get, the way these threats come in, a ghost social media account, an alias on a social media account. We're able to work through that process, identify the student that made that threat. We physically go out and talk to that student, and then if charges apply, we charge them. We take it very serious. We place charges, or we get the notifications to the school and the parents so that everybody's aware of it the next day. If you want to go to the next slide. Our district threat assessment team with the entire district. So what that is, once we identify a student that's made a threat or has been charged or made some type of comment, we meet bi-weekly with people throughout the district, our mental health practitioners and other counselors, and we identify those students and we make sure that they have a safety plan. We make sure that we're remaining in contact with that student. We make sure that we go out and we do in-home visits or we go to school. So we're constantly checking up on the students that are involved in that. So an example would be if we had a student that made a threat against a school, we investigated that case. If we resolved it and we put charges on that student may be placed in alternative school or alternative placement. We maintain communication and contact with that student throughout the year, and we're constantly going back and checking up on that. Matt, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yep. Oh, that's good. The last thing that I'll touch on, knowing we're probably running short on time, is the increase in the amount of community collaboration that we've had. When I started this job, we were all very much working in silos trying to address this issue. Through the use of our violence prevention team, through Chief Kessinger's team, through our collaboration with LMPD and the Office of Violence Prevention, in almost all of these situations that you see that are involving youth in our community, we are collaborating around in a way that we haven't ever before. And that is from a law enforcement side, that is from a school side, and that is from a resource side to make sure we are all on the same page, one, with knowing what's going on, knowing the safety of and related information to each one of those situations, so we can address them appropriately, and then 3, making sure there's appropriate case management along the way. And so I'm really excited to say that. I mean, that is happening weekly in our district alongside the city, and Chief Kessinger plays a big part in that role. We are present in GVI, and we are present in anything violence prevention related. We're there to talk through and work on. So I did want to share that. We will conclude with just some data points. Chief Kessinger touched on some of this. I'll tell you, just to give you an idea, as of December, our current violence prevention caseload was 213 students. And those come to us in a variety of ways. And again, they range in age from kindergarten all the way through the 12th grade. And again, just working to support those kids in a way that we haven't before. We have seen a 6% increase in staff perceptions of safety over the past 2 years. I attribute that to things like weapons detections, our SROs, and our district threat assessment teams. That's almost to 80%. On staff perceptions, and that continues to rise. We're excited about that. From 23, 24 to 24, 25, we did see a 60% reduction in guns in schools. We were almost at a number approaching 30 before that, and last year we reached a number of 4. And I probably used that term wrong, because when I say 4, those guns never made it into our schools last year. Those were four that were identified through our weapons detection or outside of the school in another way. And so we feel solidly, obviously, there's always work to do in this area. So this isn't a we're done, but we feel happy with the progress, knowing, we still have a long road ahead of us. So with that, Chief Guesser, if there's anything else you want to add, and we'll turn it over for questions. Yes, sir.
An obvious topic here in town is the budget proposals of JCPS. Are any of those proposals affecting you all, your departments?
At this point, Dr. Yearwood is heavily invested and understands the importance of safety of being a primary need for our students and their ability to learn. Right now, the only position that's being impacted currently is our safety administrator position. That position is staying, but it is just getting a little bit smaller, meaning we're going from having one in every building to doing a more 3 to 4 school support model. Other than that, at this point in time, I'll say that I don't anticipate any other changes.
And one follow-up, what is your all's relationship with JCPS, our suburban police departments, when you anticipate or identify a potential problem in a school? What's the role of the Jefferson County School Police Department versus outside?
Well, we collaborate daily with LMPD, so you have certain units that we talk to. And one thing about our department, we've gone from, if you saw on the statistic, we went from 13 officers to 72 officers from 2023 to now. The majority of our officers are former retired LMPD officers, and then we have other officers from other agencies, and we have probably about, I think, 15 or so officers that are just starting their career with us. Or in the prime of their career. So a lot of those relationships are naturally born because we work together and we worked with LMPD. I was in charge of the homicide unit for several years, so those contacts are natural and we talk on a regular basis. But what we're doing is we're setting up channels that will last once we leave. Once we leave and a new group of officers come in, that those communications, those meetings, with the non-fatal unit, with the homicide unit, with the district-level detectives, with the district officers. We get a tremendous amount of support from the uniform officers. So the uniform officers, off the top of my head, I don't recall the exact number, but I think we made about 3,000 runs to the schools last year. Those would have been runs that LMPD would have made. So those uniform officers are aware of the schools, are aware of the issues, and they still support our officers. So we have daily conversations, a lot of meetings set up, and a lot of things that we use to collaborate and discuss with them on a regular basis. Anytime we have something that we think is going to go out to the community, we reach out, and vice versa. Anytime they respond to something they think could affect the schools, they reach out, and we discuss it.
Just for clarification, you mentioned the prevention team. So do you have prevention team in each school, or how that works?
No, we don't have violence prevention team in each school. We have 4 that rotate and support all schools as needed.
Okay. No enough.
So I agree.
I want to give a shout out to your team, Matt. So on the corner of 10th and Chestnut Street, first day of school, there was a shooting. 6 days later, there was another shooting involving the death of a parent. Matt's team, OVP, LMPD, all have been working together ever since then to ensure that the kids at that bus stop are safe. Chestnut Street Y, that's the stop that we use for our before school program to put kids on a bus. And so we've watched firsthand, the kids' fears and the fears be relieved by the presence of Matt's team, OVP, as well as others, LMPD, and so we appreciate that continued presence because it means a lot.
100% appreciate that. I got to give a shout out to Dr. McCoy and Mansell Elam in the back who lead a lot of that work for us. Those staff are 100% dedicated and doing stuff way out of their job description because that's what this work is. Thank you for that.
As on February 10th, we're going to have 120 kids come to Metro Hall to see what's going on. And I just talked to the mayor but 120 kids at one time on a field trip, that's a lot of kids that they're sending at one time. And we didn't ask for that, but they just said we're sending 120 kids. So it's going to be a busy day, but the mayor said he would be there. And anybody here that want to come out and help, we're looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, we deal with 93,000 of them every day, so we can help out with that too. No problem. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson and Chief Kessinger. We do have one more topic related to this. We have two people here from our Office of Violence Prevention, Marvita Starks, who works on Pivot to Peace, and Nanette Dix, who works on mental health resources, particularly those for kids. So I figured we'd take about 60 seconds each or so to have you guys just briefly introduce how your work intersects with youth violence prevention, particularly as it relates to JCPS. And if anybody has questions for these folks, please feel free to ask them. Could we start with Marvita, please?
Hi, my name is Marvita Starks. I'm the Assistant Director of our Intervention Services. At the Office of Violence Prevention, we support at-risk JCPS students by connecting them to a strong network of wraparound services designed to keep them safe, engaged in school and away from violence. A major part of this work comes from our outreach workers, individuals who have lived experience, who meet youth where they are and provide mediation, de-escalation, mentorship, and consistent guidance. Their relationship helps make safer choices and avoids conflict and could disrupt their education. Violence intervention specialists, they're our partners that work with our community violence intervention model. They intervene before the violence occurs. They step in at moments of tension and help redirect youth towards safety. The Office of Violence Prevention currently staffs 3 high-risk JCPS bus stops. Thank you so much for mentioning one of the main ones, which is on the 10th and Chestnut. We also have 2 that are in the Newburgh area, which is at Shady Villa and at the Newburgh Community Center. And then we have teams that are present 3 days a week at Parkland, Shawnee, and the Western Libraries, where they help to maintain safe spaces by partnering with the librarians on the Peace Circle, which is a restorative process that helps youth regain library access through behavior modification and planning. Across schools, bus stops, libraries, and community spaces, OVP helps to bring expertise, mentorship, intervention directly to young people who need it most, reducing conflict, strengthening pathways to stability and success.
Thank you, Marvita. My name is Nana Dix. I lead the trauma resilient communities, and what we do and help with JCPS is that we, and also with YMCA, we take and provide trauma-focused training to JCPS counselors in the areas of trauma response, grief support, clinician self-care to strengthen mental health capacity within the schools. Additionally, we are collaborating with the Frisky of W.E.B. Du Bois School to bring Fathers United Against Community Violence Initiative to one as a keynote speaker for their Donuts with Dads and another for their mental health event. We also have the DAG program that is a development and growth initiative that we can offer for young people who have lost loved ones due to community violence and balance, and then also to the penal system, because we know that what the doctor talked about earlier about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, that can dictate how you think and how you feel and react in life. So I thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. Does anybody have questions for either Nanette or Marvita at this time? Okay, I don't see any questions at the moment. All right, this brings us to our break. But before you get up, I have a request for you. You are sitting with your fellow subcommittee members. In the materials in front of you, you'll find a document with the contact information of subcommittee members. During the break, 2 requests. 1, make sure that contact information is correct and what you want it to be. And 2, see if you can select a subcommittee chair. If someone in your subcommittee could please try to give a call to anybody who is not here or who had to attend this meeting remotely today to get them in on it, that would be appreciated. Bonus points if you come up with a potential first meeting date and time. We'll be back in 10. Thank you.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Metro TV shows your government in action. Metro TV is the only place you will see every minute of Metro Council meetings live. Be informed, be prepared, be a part of our community. Stay connected with Louisville Metro TV on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Spectrum Cable Channel 184. Metro TV. Engage, empower, entertain.
Wonderful. So, for our next discussion, I want to welcome Dr. Maria Lederman. Dr. Maria Lederman was recently appointed by Mayor Greenberg as the Executive Director of Behavioral Health and is leading the Mayor's Office of Behavioral Health. In that role, she's helming Louisville's behavioral health response for the city, coordinating across housing, public health, corrections, and public safety. So not a heavy lift at all. She's also working closely with the Community Safety Commission to design and implement the behavioral and mental health initiatives required by the community commitment, including crisis response and alternatives to incarceration for people experiencing behavioral health crises. Dr. Lederman is also helming a mental health council, which she will speak to today as required by the community commitment. Her background and experience in behavioral health and justice systems are extensive, and I will let her tell you more about herself. Dr. Lederman, thank you so much for being here and for partnering with the Community Safety Commission on this work.
Well, thank you for the introduction. I was personally very excited that your all's group was interested in behavioral health and substance use right off the jump. So I know mental health has not always been a trendy or popular topic. So I keep joking that the time really is now for me in my career that everybody's interested in mental health all of a sudden. So I'm really excited that you guys are equally interested in that and that we're going to be able to work together on this. So I wanted to start off by just sharing what we are doing as a city in terms of behavioral health. I think a lot of times when we talk about law enforcement and public safety, it is viewed in a myopic lens that we're only focusing on, what the police are doing. But really, what the police are doing is a reflection of what is happening in our greater communities, and our other systems and everything else around us is going to then have an impact on what police is doing and what happens after police have interactions with people in our community. So I'm going to talk about our new position that has been created in the mayor's office. As Shan said, my background is in psychology. I'm a licensed forensic psychologist. So my training has really spanned across all the systems that we're going to be talking about today, and my work has included primarily justice involvement in all sorts of settings. So I started actually in JCPS. I worked at Iroquois High School. So I was working with what are deemed at-risk youth. It was kind of an interesting beginning into my clinical services that I was there as a graduate student. I was with what we have identified as our highest need population, and yet I'm looking around and the services and support that's available in our school system was fairly minimal. And the students that I was then working with, they were unfortunately on a trajectory into the justice system. As my work has continued, I have worked in the state hospital system, working with forensic populations, so individuals with severe mental illness, and then primarily moved into the justice system, working in state and federal prisons, doing both treatment and assessment. So prior to taking my new role in the mayor's office, I was brought into our local jail across the street back around 3.5 years ago. So the jail was having a lot of issues at the time, specifically related to issues with mental health. There was a number of suicide deaths and overdoses happening, and there was a huge sweep for jail reform and correction reform in our community. So I was brought in with our director at that time, with the emphasis really being to focus on how do we improve care in our justice system, and really having somebody with the background in psychology to help oversee and steer our jail efforts and services, and also working with our officers. In September, I began my new role here in the city, working with the mayor. And so the idea behind this role was that it was going to really target behavioral health strategically on the front end. So a lot of the work that I was doing in the jail we were catching these issues on the back end. So people that end up in the justice system, clearly there has been an issue in our community and all these other systems. And so the goal with this new position is to really strategically focus with behavioral health in all parts of our city, all parts of government, so that we can make a better effort to prevent things on the front end rather than dealing with them on the back end. And so, when we think about mental health and behavioral health, oftentimes it's this add-on, something we think about after the fact, but yet it's something that has a direct impact in all of our systems and everything that we do. So when we talk about economic development, when we talk about jobs, when we talk about reentry, when we talk about police interactions, all of this has behavioral health components. And so the city is really wanting to think about this in a more strategic way and make sure that we are integrating behavioral health in a more effective way. So part of what we are going to go over today, I wanted to share, obviously, what the role is and what, I will be doing in my office. So like I mentioned, the priority is centralizing everything that we're doing with behavioral health, shifting from this add-on mentality, excuse me, and really focusing on aligning all of our systems that work together and making sure that those systems are all connected and working together. So I wanted to share what, the main priorities are out of this office. Again, I think it's important for us to know where behavioral health connects. As we talk about the police response and the community commitment, there is a direct link to all of the priorities coming out of this office. So first, as Deputy Mayor Kemper mentioned, obviously the public safety commitment, so working specifically on the section that is required for this. There's also a huge priority that the mayor has placed on housing. So obviously our law enforcement officers have a lot of involvement with our homeless community, and there is a significant intersection with that population and our law enforcement. So we're going to be focusing a lot on addressing homelessness, specifically using permanent supportive housing as our model. And by 2027, the goal is to have 250 people that are chronically homeless into permanent supportive housing units. We're also going to be working on expanding reentry, so economic development for people to have greater opportunities once they come back into the community, focusing on early intervention. So when we think about students, we heard about all the work happening in JCPS. That is an integral part of thinking about how we impact people in the community if we start addressing behaviors and family units at that early space in the education system. And then lastly, I'll be working on creating a behavioral health strategic plan. And so we're going to have something that is actually driving our city, giving us a roadmap and framework of how behavioral health is going to intersect in all of these spaces. So something that I like to share just, when we talk about this concept of behavioral health and how it intersects in all of these spaces, there's a sequential intercept model. So it's kind of this fancy term that I think is a very logical way for us to think about a framework of people that have significant mental illness, that have interactions with the legal system, and all of the spaces in which this can happen. And so ideally, when you have a community that operates optimally, each of these spaces, each of these intercepts, as it's called, are functioning to their best ability. So intercept 0 is our community. And so ideally, when you have the best services in the community, this is, prior to anyone having any contact with law enforcement, having any type of justice involvement, the idea is that there would be strong behavioral health and substance use services that are available. So this would be like your community mental health providers, treatment centers, any space where behavioral health and substance use needs can be addressed without any legal involvement. And then you get into the next intercept, and that would be when there is some type of involvement. So that is, when somebody calls 911, or now we have a deflection unit. So how those systems are operating. And then you move into more of the legal system. So that's court proceedings, initially when people are involved with the detention process, and then moving into the jail system. So again, the jail then operates as a point of intervention. So while folks are in custody, what kind of services are they receiving? What kind of mental health access do they have? What kind of reentry planning is happening before they're released into the community? And that leads to Intercept 4, which is once people get out of custody, what services are available and how is the community picking them back up? And then lastly, the community correction component, which often looks like probation and parole, and what's happening with people that have had that justice involvement. So really, this is a framework how you can see from community through justice involvement all of the spaces that somebody with mental health and behavioral health issues has opportunities to have interactions with the legal system. And so, it is unfortunate that the way that society communities have evolved, that mental health, unfortunately, is intercepted by the justice system. That was never the intention when we had deinstitutionalization happen. Ideally, Intercept 0 is where the primary focus should have been. So I know this slide is extremely chaotic. When I sent the slides, Jordan emailed saying, hey, do you know that your stuff doesn't fit? And yes, I do know it doesn't fit. And so the reason I have it on here, and again, I don't expect us to go over this, but we recently had a jail study that was done looking at, some of the recommendations and concerns that we have with our jail that we're going to talk about a little bit in a few minutes. But part of that process was looking at our local sequential model, how we operate, what services we have available here in Louisville. So that is why this slide is so chaotic. This has a lot of the services listed that we have here. And so, I think as we can see by the chaos on this slide, there are a number of things that are available in our community, and also the fact that we are all here, the fact that this conversation is happening, we're all, invested in this issue, is also an indicator that despite all of these available resources, there's still spaces and areas for us to work on and find out ways that we can be doing better. So I want to share a little bit about some of the work that was done from the jail. And part of this, again, is just to give us some context. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of things that happen in the community and gaps that are happening outside in the community end up funneling into the jail. And so part of talking about the jail and what we were seeing there is obviously going to give us a better picture and understanding of the work that needs to be happening in the community in terms of law enforcement response and what's happening on that front end. Because if we do better at that piece and prioritize behavioral health in the community setting and enhance our officers' involvement with people with substance use and behavioral health issues, then we would be seeing less of these issues coming down into the correctional system. So like I mentioned earlier, a big part of the reform that was happening inside of the jail was specifically to target the mental health and substance use issues and needs of people that were coming into the facility. So sadly, the jail really serves a primary population of people with very significant mental health issues. I know one of the groups here is focused on trauma. I would say almost 100% of people that are justice involved have fairly significant trauma histories, from family violence, domestic violence, interpersonal violence, sexual abuse, and the list goes on, and even criminal involvement in and of itself is a form of trauma. So a lot of the services that were focused and prioritized in the jail were to increase assessment and treatment in the jail, increasing the programming that we were doing there. We started a medication-assisted treatment program, and part of that was also working to make sure we're linking people to substance use treatment in the community. We worked to create a jail-based competency restoration program. So I know there's a few folks in here that work in the court system, the prosecutor's office. So there was a huge backlog. We had a significant amount of people that could not even go to court. They were that mentally ill that they were not even competent to proceed with their trials, but yet we couldn't do anything with them because there weren't hospital beds available. So we developed a jail-based competency restoration program to help address the mental health needs immediately on the front end. We also worked to create a post-arrest diversion program in partnership with Wellspring. And so the idea of that was, we have identified people that have significant mental health needs. They should not be in a jail. They need to be in crisis stabilization units and receiving mental health services. So getting them out of the jail and working with the courts to get them out. So these are a few examples of things that were done inside of the jail. But again, the key issue, the key trends that we were seeing is people have serious mental illness, they have substance use issues, they don't have basic, things that we all need, such as IDs or insurance or access to medication when they're out in the community. And so the jail was working to really enhance and connect people with these missing services. So when we, kind of think about everything that was going on in the jail, there's still obviously been a lot of concerns and focus on the population and the system in which people with these significant needs were coming. So recently, 2025, there was an independent study that was commissioned by Louisville Metro Council, and really what this study was looking at was what are the conditions at the jail, what kind of services are being provided, as well as what's happening in the community related to those services, what are population trends that we're seeing, and how is our population being driven. And so some of the key takeaways that came out of this study was related to what's happening in court and how long and what that process is looking like related to people in custody. Looking at some of our practices related to cite and arrest. So again, that's going to be something that's particularly relevant to this group. How are officers interacting with people coming into custody once they're booked? If they're getting released fairly quickly, should those be people that are going into custody? So that was a space for us to start looking at. Also, the utilization of specialty courts. So that's referring to things like mental health court, we have VA court, we have drug specialty courts. So there's special services that are available that, again, we could be diverting people so that they're not coming into the jail setting. And then also a big focus, again, going back to that first intercept and intercept zero in the community, before any type of justice and law enforcement involvement, what are our options in the community? What are our other alternatives that could be existing? And basically, when we think about when officers have interactions with people that have serious behavioral health needs, if they don't have an alternative in our community, we're not really setting them up for success. They unfortunately then only have one limited option, which is going to jail, or in some cases, bringing an individual to the hospital. But if that person does not have the criteria to remain in the hospital, they go back out into the community. And so when we think about the police and our commitment that we're talking about here in this space, there's also a huge intersection that we need to be considering around what services and what's happening inside our community to help support law enforcement in order to make them be effective and be able to work with people that have behavioral health needs. So getting into the specific section related to the community commitment that you guys will be looking at, particularly the monitors and working closely with you all, is Section 10. So again, when this was developed, clearly there is people in the room that understood law enforcement is very much involved with the interaction and response with people with behavioral health, intellectual disabilities, and substance use issues. So therefore, we need to really prioritize, and going back to that point, that mental health can't just be an add-on for law enforcement. This needs to really be something that we are integrating into how they police. So I wanted to kind of go over this piece with you all. I'm sure as members of this, you guys have read everything front to back and know all of your sections. But just kind of wanted to go over this piece and share what the expectations are. And again, you know, working with the police department, they're very excited. A lot of times people talk about behavioral health and these issues, but there's never really someone in place that can provide support. So when I got into my role, police department was very excited. Immediately, they're like, great, you can help with this. And I was like, absolutely, I cannot wait. Okay. So the behavioral health piece of this basically sets up a committee. So it's an oversight council, and part of that council is then going to include a CIT advisory committee and also an incident review subcommittee. And so what this council is going to be doing is essentially trying to oversee issues related to how people interact with individuals that have behavioral health needs, also partnering with the deflection unit and seeing, you know, how MetroSafe is responding to calls, when deflection is utilized, what are trends and patterns and use of force issues that we're seeing. So there's going to be reviewing of the body cam footage, looking at what type of 911 calls or 311 calls are happening. And ultimately, this council is then going to be providing recommendations, all focused on the behavioral health components of how those interactions happen with people in the community. And then the other piece of it is really focused on training elements and how we are equipping officers to interact and respond to people in behavioral health crisis. So we kind of went over this. I laid out, you guys have this in your slide, but it outlines specifically who the members are, the chair members, who's required to be on this. I think a great part of this is that it requires us to have a number of different specialties, whether it's a representative from mental health agencies. We have Wellspring on board. We have 7 counties. We have NAMI part of this. So a number of different mental health partners as well as our local partners. Everyone is working together. So that is outlined specifically who is required to be in these committees. We can keep going. So the last piece of all of this, again, is that the culmination of Section 10 is really a reflection of everything that we are doing. And in order to make sure that our police department and officers are successful, this has to work in tandem with everything else that is available and happening in our community. So I'll leave a couple minutes here for folks that have questions. But at the end of this, I know all of the subcommittees that you guys have developed in some form or fashion touch on behavioral health needs at different points of the system. So I'm available to you all as a resource. Anything that you all need help with, please let me know. I will be working closely with this team, with the police department, obviously working out of the mayor's office. So please use me as a resource any way that I can support or help you all in your work. That's my goal, and that's what my role will be here with you all. So I will give you all opportunity for folks that have questions.
Since the mayor snatched you out of the jail and given the time of, the length of time you spent in that capacity in the jail, do you have a successor in the jail?
I'm currently my own successor. So I'm still working very closely with the jail, so all of their mental health services, substance use services. David Kaplan is now over corrections, so I'm working directly with him. So I'm still involved with all of that, but there's not a current me. Go ahead.
One, thank you for coming here. It was the topic that I had suggested. Obviously, it's personal to me, and just wanted to say, kind of to his point, we worked with you and Director Collins over at the jail. Appreciated that very much. Excited that you've been appointed into this position. You and I have talked. I think it's important to have this office. I think it's important that Metro Council gave money for the Crisis Center in the last budget. I think those are great first steps. So I just kind of wanted to applaud that good work and look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Hi. So we are now the new Mental Health and Trauma Response Subcommittee. So it's rhetorical for now, but we would love to talk to you further about how we can help you.
What plans do you have the mental health, area to work with the immigrant community?
Say that again.
What the plan is to work with the immigrant community? Focus on the behavioral health problems here on Louisville. The immigrant.
The immigrant community. So that is actually one of my areas of passion. Before coming to Kentucky, I used to do work with refugees and asylum seekers. So in terms of working with the immigrant community, I think a lot of it will be in partnership and driven by our Office of Immigrant Affairs. So I think a lot of the concerns that we're having is obviously the collective trauma that the immigrant community is having. So finding ways of increasing access to services. I think a lot of it too will be learning from our community around ways that they need additional support. I think also working with the police department and being clear around what their role is, especially in a challenging political climate, and making sure that, our immigrant community knows what the police role is and what they do versus other, government people. But yes, right now I think mainly it will be partnership with the Office of Immigrant Affairs and working to support them anyway. But clearly behavioral health and mental health is a huge issue that is impacting the immigrant community.
We need to move on to the next topic. However, I want to thank Dr. Lederman again for speaking with us. Her contact information is here. We are also happy to facilitate if you have any additional follow-up, and we will definitely be working with her more.
Great, thank you, Shan. Could you go to the next slide? Not that it's informative. We're now on to other business. Now, before we talk about agenda items, I have two questions for you. The first one is, obviously we got delayed with our December meeting, so we have a weird situation where our next meeting is in 3 weeks. If we wanted to do the next meeting in between now and our April meeting, it would be during the week of March 2nd at some point. I want to open it up to commission members and ask whether you prefer to keep the February meeting date or move it so that it falls more in between today and the April meeting. Anybody have thoughts on that? Okay. I see Ms. Verona says move it. Okay. Anybody else? And Dr. Anderson says move it. Okay. So I'll just pose this for a quick vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Councilwoman. I'm sorry, ma'am, I couldn't hear you.
It's okay. I was just trying to find out the date of the next meeting because we have Metro Council meetings, and I just want to make sure it's not on a Thursday or a Wednesday.
Absolutely. So, I'm sorry, did you have something?
I was just going to say, part of the reason we were talking about that is because you mentioned that on the 17th, where it's currently scheduled, there are already 3 committee meetings. I think you mentioned, right. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to take that into account, but we also want to take in everyone's schedule into account. And the fact that we had to move the December meeting, this would put it a little bit more, so there's more time between, and hopefully Alifa, I think, will have had more time to do things too, so they can have more of an update. So we'll send out an email, and we'll find out what works best for everyone.
All right. And by send out an email, we will look for the week of March 2nd, correct, Shan? But we will make sure it works for as many people as possible. So I'm just going to do a quick show of hands. Who's okay with this plan, moving it to the week of March 2nd? All right, I see most hands up. Ms. Law, you're remote, but we still see you there. Are you okay? with moving it? Yes, okay. Anybody not okay with moving it and want to discuss it further? All right, I don't see any hands up. Okay, that was the first question. The second question for you. We set 2 agenda items for discussion today. Obviously, we moved kind of quickly through those items. So I'd like to know whether you want to, for our next meeting, focus on 1 agenda item and dig more into that, or whether you think it's better to cover 2 agenda items as we're going with follow-up as necessary. Do any commission members have opinions on that? Sir?
I'd rather do one and have more time for discussion.
Okay, I see Ms. Jenkins nodding as well. Any other thoughts on that?
I respect that. I like the 2 because I think the real work is going to be done in the subcommittees, and so the opportunity to understand more of what's going on throughout the community to be able to infuse in the subcommittees gives you a chance to listen to 2 versus 1.
Understood. Any other thoughts?
That will be depend on the discussion, because maybe sometimes we want only ones, depend on what will be that discussion, and we all maybe more into that, and sometimes we want only 2 or 1. That will be depends.
Understood. Okay, then how about we do it this way? I have the list of discussion topics from the last meeting that people brought up. To remind everybody, Senator Herron mentioned talking about legislative policies around gun safety and storage requirements. Mr. Brown, Renee Brown, brought up LMPD's policing efforts and how they work with other law enforcement agencies. Mr. Huber brought up interventions and resources for parents. Mr. Will brought up the subject of suicide. After that, Ms. Jenkins submitted via email a topic. She said it would be useful to hear how the different entities interact or don't interact with each other in the context of police reform. So specifically, what role does the Inspector General play, the Independent Monitor, the Civilian Review and Accountability Board, and Community Safety Commission, how those lanes intersect. She also mentioned that it would be helpful to have an outline of the state laws that pertain to LMPD, Police Officer Bill of Rights, process for certification and decertification, and the state training program. Ms. Jenkins, I think we can accomplish that the same way that we addressed Mr. Lopez's question about Hispanic crime trends. Does that work for you? Okay. Those were the topics that we had from the last meeting and via email submission. Are there any other topics that commission members want prioritized sooner rather than later? Mr. Will.
It's not another topic, but a question. What agenda item or items should we be reviewing relative to our core purpose of our own local dissent decree and the mayor's plan, as compared to deviating off into other topics that may or may not be directly related to that?
So I think with respect to the community commitment, you're still waiting to hear out on a lot of the substance from the Independent Monitor. Once you hear that, you will be able to determine what you want to speak more about on that. I think all of the topics that I just mentioned touch on community safety and will touch on the Mayor's Safe Louisville plan. So I think all of those are fair game, but you're right, we do need to make sure that we tether it to what is the city doing on all of these objectives. Anyone else have a topic that they want more than some of the topics that I just listed? All right. How about we vote on the first topic to be covered, and then we can determine whether you want an additional topic with that or you want to just focus on one. So again, the topics are legislative policies around guns, LMPD's policing efforts and how they work with other law enforcement, parents, suicide, and how the entities interact in police reform efforts. So that's 5 to choose from. I'll read them out again. If you could raise your hand for your number one choice, and please raise it high. My glasses aren't that great, and I'll make sure that I get an okay tally. All right? So the first one was legislative policies around guns. For whom is that number one? Ooh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. The next, I got 7 on that. LMPD policing efforts and how they work with other law enforcement. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, 4 on that. Parents, to paraphrase. All right, suicide. 1, And finally, how entities interact in police reform efforts. I think somebody's double voting here. Someone is, all right, put them up one more time. I'm sorry, you guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I count 5 on that one. So the numbers came out that the number 1 was legislative policies around guns. Number 2 was how entities interact in the police reform effort. Given that those are the top 2 topics, what do people think? Should we stick to one topic or cover both? Both? All right, a lot of people are yelling about both. Let's do it. Let's do both. All right. I will just put this to a very quick motion and vote. Do I have a motion from a commission member to adopt the agenda items of legislative policies around guns and how entities interact in police reform? And a second? Any further discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor say aye. And all opposed say nay, please. All right, I got nothing. That's great. So now we have our next agenda items. Again, the meeting date is going to change from February 17th to someday during the week of March 2nd. We will follow up with you and make sure that that gets done. This concludes our meeting. Meeting's adjourned. The room is open if subcommittees want to discuss further. Shannon and I will walk around and look at the sheets that you've got so far so we know who to communicate with to help you arrange if there's a space that you need or any other logistics that you need for your subcommittee meetings. Thank you very much. Shannon, anything to add?
Nope, you did great.
Pleasure meeting you. Good luck. Great group of people, man.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Metro TV shows your government in action. Metro TV is the only place you will see every minute of Metro Council meetings live. Be informed, be prepared, be a part of our community. Stay connected with Louisville Metro TV on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Spectrum Cable Channel 184. Metro TV. Engage, empower, entertain.